Hello, welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, the strategies, and the insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Trey Robinson of Story Amplify. How's it going, Trey?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Trey, I would love to just start by learning a little bit more about you and a little bit more about your agency.
Yeah, I personally am a 20, probably close to 25-year-old year financial services marketing guy.
Wow.
Lucky enough, started in the day trading business back when that was happening in the 2000s and got sucked into some BDs, did some bank marketing. And so I've been in the financial services vertical forever. And then we launched Story Amplify in 2018. I had just rolled out of Schwab, and I really wanted to take some of the big company best practices and figure out how to help fintechs and startups and individual financial advisors bring down some of that big company marketing to the masses.
Awesome. And you founded Story Amplify to integrate that PR, the SEO, and the content into a unified strategy for financial services clients. There must have been some challenges with that, right? What challenges did you face in merging these disciplines, and how has this full, well-rounded approach benefited your clients?
Yeah. So when we were in the big company world, everything was siloed, as you can imagine.
Mhm.
And it drove me crazy that we would have one story we want to tell, but I would have to fight to tell it across
Yeah.
multiple channels. And so when we launched the agency, I really had this premise that old school pitching and PR, while it will always be around, has morphed into more of an omni-channel approach. And so what we did was we said, how do we tell a good story? How do we create a good piece of content? And then how do we use it across multiple channels? So then how do we
Yeah.
make a video out of it? How do we make a press release out of it? How do we get backlinks to it, right? How do we make a blog? How do we turn it into an ebook? And but it's really one story. And as a small firm, how many times can we reuse it and how many different mediums to amplify it? And so that's where the name Story Amplify came from. But it's also where the premise of really trying to drive outsized search results through PR and content strategies.
Awesome. And I love that approach too. That's something that we also try to do here at Orange 142, where we do media buying. And it's like, how do we take that story, like you're saying, or that piece of content and put it programmatically across the web? Because that's what we specialize in. Because it can be used again. And I think that's what a lot of companies don't realize is that when they have a really good piece of content, people don't just live on one little corner of the internet. You know what I mean? They visit several places. So how can you use that and then use and make it native to each platform? So that's really cool that you guys are doing that. That's like such an amazing service in and of itself, just to be able to say, yes, we can do something like this, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I also think as marketers, we underestimate how many times a consumer needs to see something before
Yeah.
they get it, right? And so we think, oh, we wrote the email and now we got to write a new email. No, honestly, let's reuse the email because the email open rates, if we're lucky, are double digit percentages. Most of the time, they're in low single digit percentages. And so the idea that we can reuse that piece is something that we might forget about. And so totally believer in telling the story multiple times. If you watch TV, you know that burnout on commercials is a lot higher than we think, right? Like if talking about your media background. And we need to just remember that as marketers. And we also need to preach that to our clients. This stuff can live a lot longer than you think.
Yeah, I love that. And as you talk, I definitely hear the years of experience in there. And you mentioned almost 25 years or over 25 years in marketing now. And you mentioned Charles Schwab, and also I know that you were with USAA. How have these experiences shaped the services and the vision of Story Amplify now?
So marketing has definitely changed over the
Yeah.
years, right? Like we're looking down the barrel of AI right now. But at the core foundation, it's about a good marketing strategy. Right now, how we execute that strategy is always going to be evolving. But one of the things that we like to do when our client is a lot of times the client will show up with a problem, right? And you can just jump in and execute the problem. Sure, you need an email campaign, we're happy to build that for you. But we like to hit the pause button and talk to the client a little bit about their strategy, about their business, about their target, about their uniqueness, because a lot of times we can make better marketing if we understand the question behind the question or the problem behind the problem. And so that to me is that 25 years experience. We still got to go back to our basic blocking and tackling of marketing. How are you different? Who's your target? What are we solving? What's the big pain point? And so I think bringing some of that old school deep strategy thinking to some of these fast turning new world problems is the way that we add value and that experience can play in.
Yeah, I love that. And there's another just a unique value proposition of just hiring outside to for stuff like this because I feel like when clients are they're in it every day, so it's really hard for them to see what's unique about their product or their service when they're focusing on it every day. And having an outside company come in and just think like that for them and see, hey, you might think that it's this, but it's actually this. There's
Yep.
so much value in that, right?
Yeah, 100%. So we specialize in financial services and we do a lot of work for financial advisors. And
Mm,
financial advisors are really neat people. They want to help their clients. They are
mhm.
in it to be helpful. They want their clients to be successful and they're very service hardened. So they want to serve really well. And my partner does a lot of brand work with advisors. And he literally starts one of his questions with, I know that you offer really good service. You wouldn't be in this business if you didn't. Besides your service, the value you offer in service, what else do you do that's unique? And why does he ask it that way? Because he's asked the question so many times that he knows they're going to lead with service. But
Yeah.
it's our job to dig deeper,
Yeah.
understand what else they do, understand how they're unique in their market. And so that's just that experience playing in to help you get
Yeah.
behind the question.
Yeah. What is something that would set a financial, because the financial services industry is a pretty crowded market, not only with fintech startups, but also financial advisors, right? So aside from service, which it sounds like a lot of people lean on, true. What is something that really like that you can pull out or that you've seen that, wow, this really sets this financial advisor apart?
Honestly, it's not as hard as you would think. But
Hmm.
to your point, a lot of times they miss it because they do it every day. They don't realize it. So we had a firm that we worked with, and we said, "Who talk to me about your normal client?" And they started talking, and after a while, they mentioned like Southern Pacific Railroad. I think it is what it was. It was some railroad, and we were like, "Well, hold on. Why did you mention that?" And they're like, "We're in the town and their corporate headquarters, and we do a lot with their pension plan." And we're like, "Time out. That's pretty unique. I don't know anybody else that can says we specialize in, like I said, I can't remember the railroad name, but for this example, we use Southern Pacific's pension
Right.
plan program, right? Like the advisor just takes it for granted. Oh yeah, I know that program. I can figure that out. But if you're an executive of that program, having someone show up there already knows the ins and outs and where you have coverage gaps and the nuances of that program add a ton of value. And so that's a place that we hear a lot. What's your concentration? Where do your most of your clients live? Are they in a specific industry? What do they struggle with? And usually with some of those questions, we tease out a knowledge that they have that no one else does. And then that's where we start to build their brand around that unique knowledge or that unique skill. And so we've heard that more and more than you can believe. That localization or hyper targeting is really where somebody can really stand out.
Interesting. Wow. I didn't think about that. I was like going along the lines of, okay, if it's service, then it's something else. But I'm seeing the value in being like, hey, I'm Clark County, Tennessee's financial advisor, and this is where I'm here and I'm just a phone call away. That localization is such
That's
a
right.
unique identifier, and people will go to that financial advisor just because they're in Clark County, right?
That's right. And if they work for the county, that advisor knows, oh, your pension plan is going to start here. Here's
Yeah.
the coverage places. Here's where your Medicare is or medical insurance is accepted. Like all of those little nuances help them give you better financial advice
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
never want to have a gap in what you're covering or what you're trying to do. So that's just one example. If we're in the fintech world, we really try to dig into the problem they're solving because
Mhm.
usually a fintech is started to like really push on a specific need or a pain point that they felt somewhere else. And so we really want to dig into that problem and then help figure out how do you do this different than the traditional solutions. And that's usually where we can hone in. But it's
Yeah.
a lot of questions, a lot of digging. That's the fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah, and that's the one cool thing I think about fintech startups rather than regular, like what you saw in your typical Silicon Valley startup, is that fintech, a lot of times they were created to solve a specific problem that they saw in the market, which is awesome because when you saw these Silicon Valley startups, and it still happens, they just create this product and then hope that somebody likes it. You know what I mean? They don't do the market research, and that's why so many of them fail. But fintech specifically is like, hey, we saw this problem, whether it's even on the B2B side, like we saw this problem with payroll where everything was disjointed. So we created this. And that's what's really cool is that it's already built in. And so you guys can come in and do the work to really get the word out, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the reasons we stay specialized. One, the client never has to pay for us to learn. We've already
Mhm.
talked to their competitors. We understand how banks and credit cards work. We can really hit the ground running. But secondly, to your point, um, that we're starting with a problem in mind versus a tech in mind. And I have a really good friend, and he's an AI startup guy. And he thinks he's on his third startup, and he's super successful. But like when he and I sit down, it takes me a long time to get to the business case for the tech he's built, right? And
Yeah.
in the fintech world, that's typically not the case.
Yeah, exactly. And in a Forbes article, you discuss the power of organic search in digital marketing. What strategies do you recommend for financial services firms to effectively leverage SEO for long-term growth?
So it really, one of the reasons I love SEO is because everybody is fighting with a customer acquisition cost problem, right? A CAC problem. If you spend more than you make on a customer, you go out of business, right? That's a classical startup challenge. And organic search, the average article on page one of Google is 3 years old. So
Mhm.
once you get some rankings, they stay around. Like the dollar you spend a day pays you over the next multiple years. And so we love helping clients build a good organic foundation. Now it takes time. Like I always say, do you have more money or do you have more time? Because you have more money, we got to call Orange. If we've got more time, we got to call Story Amplify, right? Because it's
Exactly.
media versus content, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, they need both. But what we really do then is we go right back to the brand. What do we solve? What's unique? What do your customers do? And then once we take that data, we go into an SEM rush or an Ahrefs and we look for what are people searching for and how do we write content that you uniquely solve that customers are looking for. And when we can match those two together, that's when we start to unlock that organic.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to have that. It is one of those things where you have to plant the seed and watch the tree grow, but once it's there and it pays off dividends forever. And,
Yeah.
and there's so much power in that. Media is good, and you're right, you do have to spend a lot of money to acquire a customer lots of times. And the game in media, I feel, is always whoever spends the most to acquire a customer profitably wins, right? But with SEO, you put in that investment and it grows over a while. And
Yep.
that's there's power in that.
Yeah. I once saw a sign. I honestly, I think I was in a brewery. It was on the wall, but it was probably one of my favorite quotes. And it was not about SEO, but it applies to SEO. It's an old Chinese proverb, and it said, "What the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today." And that's the SEO paradigm, right? Yes, you should have started 6 months ago. Of
Yeah.
course, the tree would be growing. But if you didn't, let's start right now because we got to get that tree going. And
Mhm.
by the way, we can't wait for the tree to grow. Let's spend a little media money. And we're not a media agency. So with a partner like yours to help drive results today. So we've got,
Yeah.
like I said, short and long together.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect mix. So looking ahead, you're excited about leveraging emerging AI technology to enhance business and marketing capabilities. How do you envision AI transforming digital marketing strategies for financial services in the near future?
The most obvious thing is the thing that we're all using, and especially the college kids, which is Chat GPT, right? No longer are we writing everything on a blank piece of paper. And what that does is it makes it faster to market and it makes our content more thorough. Now, we cannot have a novice using that tool because it is still garbage in, garbage out. It is a
Yeah.
great idea generator, it is a great content filler, but it really still needs a subject matter expert at the wheel. But that's absolutely the number one first tool that's in front of us. And I think we should all be leveraging it in some way, shape, or form. I've got three boys in college. They use it to help generate the paper ideas because they're boys. A friend of mine's got three girls in college, and his girls write the paper and use it to grade it to see how they can make it better. They're still using ChatGPT. They're just using it in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Based on their level of expertise, their own work ethic, right? Those
Yeah.
types of things. So that's part of it. From there, I think we got to go into analytics. AI does a great job of helping us find insights in large amounts of data, right? And so, how do we continue to feed insights into AI and help it be our idea assistant, our financial analyst when we don't have one, right? And
Mhm.
so, the second place that I like AI for, and that we're really starting to, I think, will unlock next year in a much bigger way, is this idea of analysis or analysis partner, because I think it'll give us better insights to take
Mhm.
action on. And so that's the one, honestly, that I think is going to be the big jump for us in 25 is Gone are the days of sifting through Google Analytics and other platforms and looking for the insights. I think what's going to come next is us feeding those platforms into AI and helping it tell us the insights that we can take action on. So we'll be one step farther up the value chain when we get the analysis, AI analysis in place.
Yeah. Insights that you can take action on. Hey, here on Insights and Action with Orange 142, we're all about insights that you
Yeah.
can take action on. Trey, this has been amazing. Where can people learn more about you, and where can people learn more about your agency?
So the name of the agency is Story Amplify, and we own storyamplify.com because we're a marketing agency, and that's what you do. So that's the best place to find us. We've got some case studies about search on there. We've got our services. You can see the team. You can even find we have a physical location, believe it or not. I know that's not the most common thing today, but that's the best place. And I will tell you, we service a lot of industries. We love financial services and fintech because that's mine and my partner's background. But if you want to learn more, that's the place to go, storyamplify.com.
Thank you so much for being on. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.